After you make a race car, there's one question left to ask yourself. How do you make it faster? Hi, my name is Matthew Sakolowski, and today I will be talking to you about one of my personal favorite companies, Koenigsegg. Koenigsegg and their founder have a short but very exciting history, but there are a couple things that keep it from being great. A lot of people love really fast cars, and I will be going into depth about a company that specializes in it. I don't have a lot of personal knowledge on the subject, but I did a lot of research that came from the CEO himself. In summary, I will first talk about the founder himself, the history of the company, how they're not as popular as they should be, and about their racing in the future. But before we talk about the company, let's talk about the founder himself, Christian von Koenigsegg. Christian von Koenigsegg had dreams just like the rest of us, but when he was 22 years old, he accomplished his. When he was 5 years old, he went and saw a movie that's quoted in Koenigsegg's website. It was a film, a Norwegian film, about a bicycle repairman who decided to build a race car, and this sparked his interest. All throughout his childhood, he would take apart mechanical things just to learn how they operated, things like toasters. And not like that, he would go more into depth and want to know if they could be improved upon. But through his teen years, everyone knew what his fate would be. He started repairing mopeds, and everyone always said he was the best in town. But by the time he turned 18, he became very serious in creating new ideas and technological innovation. For example, he tried to make memory chips for computers to store music instead of discs. As we know today, that's a common thing, but when he was trying to do it, eventually he failed, but one of his ideas was going to hit in the future, which was his car company, Koenigsegg. Koenigsegg was founded in Sweden in 1997. Koenigsegg was founded in 1994, and they decided to build their first prototype. After 2 years, it was shown in public for the first time at a racetrack, and there were many famous drivers there, and they all loved it. Now, this was just a prototype at the time, but after a year, they finally got the okay to start building the real thing after success at a film festival. In 2002, just 5 years after this happened, they finally had their first production car, and not long after this, they started setting records. In 2002, the same year, they set the world record for the most powerful engine that had 665 horsepower. And they didn't stop there. In 2004, they beat their own record with 806 horsepower. And their records didn't stop there. McLaren F1 is one of the most famous cars of all time. If you were a fan of racing in the early 2000s, this was a fan favorite. But Koenigsegg dethroned that car and took the title for the fastest car in history in 2005. But in recent years, their newest model, the Regera, holds the title for the 0 to 249 mile an hour sprint, which is just get to 249 miles an hour as fast as possible. And everyone was seeing their success, which is why a Tesla factory director of engineering, Evan Horsky, jumped ship from Tesla and joined Koenigsegg. Graham Roberts with Gale Academy had him quoted in saying, "I have followed Koenigsegg's path and I've been a huge fan of the company's commitment to innovation and performance." While it was just a short history, Koenigsegg achieved more than most companies do in their lifetime. But this raises an interesting question. If they did all this, why are they not more popular and a household name like Lamborghini and Ferrari? Well, one main reason is their history is not as long as many of the big companies. Lamborghini was already a huge success by the time Koenigsegg even started making cars. Another reason is there's no market for the wealthy for these cars. One main reason for this is there's not that many cars available. They only make a few dozen cars for each model, which makes them very exclusive. In cars like Lamborghini, you could easily go find one and order it online because they make thousands of them. Another reason is the price. They start at over $1 million, while other brands, you could pick one up for a couple $100,000. The last reason is there is no market specifically in the US. This is mostly because they're illegal to drive on US streets due to them not being complacent with US federal regulations. They don't meet things like emissions, safety, and the fuel they use is too high of a grade that you would commonly use here. So even if you wanted to buy one, you would also have to go through the hassle of international sale because they don't have retailers here. It may take a while for Koenigsegg to get the recognition they deserve, but I truly believe they'll get it at some point. Koenigsegg knows that to build a legacy, they need to get into racing. But then that asks the question, why don't they have a racing team? Well, they did. They tried to put one together in 2007 for the Le Mans, one of the most famous races in history. But after some complications with the regulations, their car had many problems, and one of them was the car was too light, which is interesting because most of the cars that have problems with the regulations are too heavy and they have to get their weight dropped. Now after this, they scrapped the idea and just focused more on consumer business. But recently, they were trying to enter themselves into the 2020 Le Mans. Similar issues happened. The regulations weren't completely put out when they were making the car, so they didn't know if they would be able to completely follow them or not. Well, in the end, they didn't race in that, and the company never stated why, but it's safe to assume there was some issue with the regulations. But Koenigsegg does know that entering into these races will help grow the company by media presence, sponsorship, and help grow their fan base. And once they start to compete in races like this, their company will grow to new heights. In conclusion, Koenigsegg had a fast start to their company, and they're not as popular as they should be. In summary, their founder was a very witty young man who decided to make his dreams happen. The company, although the history was short, they have proved to be one of the best car companies out there. While they're not as popular as they should be, they definitely will be in the next decade. Once they start getting into racing, they will become much more of a household name than they were before. Koenigsegg is already leaving its mark on the automotive industry, but I'm excited to see what they have in store for their future.